Okay, so this is our final milestone for uh, our audio engine. So let me just quickly go through the whole demo first, and then we'll go into the detail. Alright, let's just load up the demo. Alright, so the first one we've kept the same one from the previous milestone. Alright, the second one. The third one now. And the fourth. And the fifth one. Alright, so that was all our demos. So let's quickly go through. The first two are the same from the milestone one. Let's go with the third one, that's the priority queue. So pretty much we're using the same buffer, and I created a separate priority queue that has priority table and priority manager. Each priority table is pretty much for a specific sound ID. It is pretty much something like the sound call that has a sound table rather than I'm using priority table that pretty much holds all the sounds the same ID altogether. So we can see it can stop all the sounds at the same time. It can add to the priority. We can print the table, and I'm sorting the queue every time. So if you look at the list here, just put it up. So every time it's the active table, there's the first three, then the active table has four, and it's sorting the sound based on the longest running sound plus the lowest priority. Uh, and as it moves up, the lowest priority goes above and with the longest running sound on top, and then we just swap those sound out. So that was for the priority queue. And the priority manager is pretty much holding all the different priority tables for different sounds all together. Then we have the next demo was for, let's see, yep, it was for the user callback. So what I've done is there was a voice callback that we used at the second demo. So what I've done with this one is I just created a separate user callback that gets triggered on stream end, and it calls the pcallback execute. Pcallback is another game callback function that we created, and it gets initialized when we are creating a sound, and we put the callback together with that. So if we go down here, we see that it shows dial, sequence, donkey, and moon patrol. As soon as it ends, it kind of prints those values out. They have been added into, there's like two similar functions, set sound voice, that is for this is for the normal one, if you just want to create, but if you want to add a user callback, this is the one that we set it up for user callback, and it pretty much sets up the game callback. And for this, the stitch one is for just the voice callback. That's a separate class that I created just for stitching. If we see, the last one is the Beethoven for asynchronous loading. So what I've done with that is, if we see the setup here, there are two wave commands. So normally what I was doing initially was loading all the waves together on the game side. Then I also created a separate wave command that gets inserted into the game audio to game queue, and it gets initialized on the game side, and it loads both of them one by one, so it doesn't take that much of stuttering during the time of gameplay. And on top of that, I've added another file thread. So this file thread I'm pretty much using for running thread and executing. So I've used this for Beethoven loading. So when I set it up, I had created a callback that's demo through loading callback. So after these two wave commands are completed, the alarm one, once it gets loaded, it calls this another callback that loads all the timer events all together. And when it loads the timer events in a specific time, I'm loading Beethoven as well. And Beethoven has a callback that we do. So it's pretty much the same wave command callback that we're doing, and then once the wave command is done, we get to call this callback. So once it's loaded, it will execute that Beethoven's loaded, and it will pretty much set up Beethoven for the play, and then it will add these three commands that will stop the audio and play Beethoven at the same time, and then adding another timer event at the end that will stop the Beethoven at 60-second time. And that's how pretty much that's working. All my cleanup is done inside the timer event for the commands, and there are separate manager for each of the cleanup. So for voices and sounds, I have a voice manager that has handles on each settings. If you're setting a volume, playing, everything has handles set up in there. Uh, there's a voice manager that holds all the sounds in there. This is the buffer and wave that holds buffer and wave information, and that's the buffer manager that helps you delete at the end. The audio manager is pretty much helps you run the audio commands and pretty much play, add audio, create sounds using the Xaudio 2 interface. So we're using that for audio system is just the thread that helps you load and run the audio system in parallel. So it will check if it's still playing, it will keep on going on, and if you hit Q, it will trigger and it will turn into true, and then stop loading this, and it will pretty much do the cleanup. Our key input events are still happening inside the game side, so I've created a function that's input keyboard, and that's being called inside the game thread. So when we see that here, you can see that's the input keyboard that runs inside the game thread, and there's the another separate commands for that goes through the game side. Okay. So when we call it queue, it quits, and it quits both file system and audio thread both. So it will pretty much stop both threads, and then we can just whenever we exit, it will clear up the whole game for us. Yeah, so it seems these are the timer events. Let me just quickly go through the timer events as well. So based on what kind of control we're doing, it is gonna create the command and then push those commands, uh, and it will load those commands during the timer manager is running. And I've created a playlist inside of those, which each timer event is for a specific playlist. So it will run for the specific playlist. So there's like different playlists in there. Um, Other than that, yep, that's pretty much it. So the that concludes. It was pretty fun, and it was a good time coding with the different system. I know it is not like the best system I created, but so far I think I've achieved a lot with this system itself. The priority queue definitely was kind of a challenge, but it was kind of fun part of it. Yep. All right.